I didn't coming alone. There's an entire entourage of ancestors with me. So the things that this is symbolic, you know. Spiritual healers are people that will always exist, you know, because it's who we are as a people, as abantu bakwantu, it's who we are as a people. So the concept of a person or an individual is different from a concept of ubuntu and umntu. So you don't wake up one day and you are a sangoma. You don't wake up one day and you decide you want to go to initiation school. Your ancestors show you through visions, through dreams. You get very ill physically. Now more than ever, the youth is actually drawing closer to their culture. Yes, a whole lot more young people are interested in knowing who they are, where they come from. There's beauty in our culture, there's beauty in our people, there's beauty in knowing where you come from, because one day you're going to have children and you're going to need to teach those children where they come from, you know. I write for entertainment. I write for entertainment. Not that I cannot tap into the spiritual side of things, my spiritual creativity, that spiritual realm, but mainly I write for entertainment. I will be the next big thing in the industry.
Hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. The Man in the Arena podcast has had some interesting people. We've had some technical, we had some aviation, but at the bottom it's all about spirituality. And I'm so excited today that we've got Zimi. She has multiple interesting stories of where we began and how we're going and where we're going, and this is all great. Zimi, tell us a little bit about yourself before we go deeper into this exciting story.
Okay. Samaku, thank you for having me. My name is Zimi Mhlaba. I am a South African fiction writer and an aspiring screenwriter. I am also a holistic healer, aka traditional healer, although I do not like to box spirituality into one box of traditional healing, because I'm of the belief that spirituality, or rather traditional healing, is a very broad umbrella.
So what's the difference in people who are watching now, when they've never heard of a traditional healer? They think of somebody that's like throwing the bones, and you've seen Mr. Bones and Leon Schuster and that sort of stuff. Is that what you do? Or is it more to it than that?
That's what I can do.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that, but it's something more than that.
Okay.
You know, because as a holistic healer, I understand that a person comprises of the mind, the body, the spirit, and also the psyche as well. So if I'm a traditional healer, I would be boxing what I have to offer to a patient or a client who comes in Ndumbeni to seek spiritual assistance. Because I also have to identify, is this thing spiritual or is this thing psychological? If it's psychological, I have to refer the client to a psychologist.
Got you. But let's, like any good story, we need to start at the beginning. So the beginning of the story and how you ended up here on this couch, where are you from?
Okay, I was born and bred in East London, grew up in the township of Tanzania.
I never liked the word township. For some reason, it always had a negative connotation for me. But being involved in politics, I spent a lot of time in Dimbaza and Umdansani, and as we were saying earlier, I've never felt safer when I'm in the townships, you know?
Yes.
So anyway, Umdansani?
Yes, I just think it's all about mindset, or how you take that. But I grew up in Tanzania. That was the environment that was to forge the woman that I am today. So in Tanzania, I experienced a lot of things. You know, as a child growing up, I experienced the concept or the ideology of Ubuntu. Because neighbors, they are very tight-knit as compared to the suburb.
No, in the suburb, you could be staying there for 5 years and you wouldn't know who your neighbor was. You know, you have an emergency in the middle of the night, who do you turn to?
Exactly. But we did very early on in my childhood relocate from Tanzania to Amalinda. So as a child, you'd think that would scare me. But being the child that I was excited about the move. I was excited to go to a new school. I was excited to meet new friends, make new friends, because I didn't have a problem making friends. I was a bubbly child. So that's how I grew up. We later moved to Amalinda. life there was very different as compared to Tanzania. You know, you wouldn't. It was very rare to find kids playing in the street. You know, even during the evening. You know, there was sort of like, you know, the life there was
it's
very
suburbia. It's in blocks, and you go to work at 8 and you come home at 5, and the kids do this and that, and it's scripted. It's boring.
It's boring. So I think that was what confused me about the transition from Tanzania to Amalinda. But then I adjusted and I adapted to the life. And then I grew up.
The life and the culture and the colors are amazing in a village, whether it's Umdansani or Timbaza or Masingato or even Soweto. It's just bubbling with creativity, and I suppose that fueled your creativity.
Definitely. You know, and growing up in a Christian home, it was very difficult for me to exercise my creativity in the sense that my parents were very conservative people, you know, and I did not know how to feel about coming out with my writing because my writing is very unfiltered, you know.
When you say unfiltered, are we talking, is it violent, is there swearing, is it just, or is it...
It's fiction,
you
know, fiction, it's fiction, and fiction, I believe, gets the author to exercise that creative muscle. So I'll draw out experiences of others, what I've observed around me. Back in Tanzania, there was gender-based violence, you know. So those were the things that I grew up you know, observing. So I took that writing, my experiences and my observations, and then I integrated them into what I would later write, which was titled Diary of Makwapini.
And when is that, where are we in that process of picking that book up at an exclusive book or a bargain book? So
we'll get to that later. So my writing was very unfiltered, you know, and for me, when I was writing Diary of Makwapeni, when I started coming out...
What does that mean? What does that mean for people who
Diary of a mistress.
Oh, really?
Diary of a mistress.
Now everybody's
because
listening
when I grew up, much of my influence in reading were Mills and Boons, you know, and people who know Mills and Boons know that it's a very romantic genre. It's very, you know, erotic, you know. So I was shaped by those books, and then I grew up, and then later discovered real literature, what I would consider real literature from African writers. You know, we have your Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and also Tutu Busani Zuma, who wrote Shomo the Wife, that aired on Showmax. So those are the people that influenced my reading over the years. And then in high school, I was the president of the debating society.
I don't know why people would be surprised.
I was the president of the debating society. I think having gone to a technical high school, I think that was my escape because I was a creative in a very fixed technical high school, Port Rex.
I think, unfortunately, it's my observation that our education system is designed to kill creativity. You know, you go in as a young person in preschool or play school, whatever it is, and you color in and you draw and you jump and everything is new and everything's exciting. And when you get to the other side 12 years later in matric, you've settled on something, and you've got to be really feisty to hold on to that creative spirit in our schooling system.
You have to be. And I always say this, we have to stay faithful and truthful to ourselves and our dreams and go after them. You know, we have to always show up for yourself, you know.
I like that, show up for yourself.
Yes,
you know?
exactly, in a world that would prefer to confine you, you know. So in high school, I first started discovering my writing capabilities. I had no problem when it came to English, paper 3, which is your creative writing. I had absolutely no problem with that because I'm one person who's very opinionated, so I don't have a problem transcending my thoughts and my opinions and my ideologies onto paper. So my high school teacher picked up on that, my English teacher. He picked up on that, and because I always knew that whatever I was writing during an essay, even if it's topic based, I would have no problem acing it, and I was writing knowing full well that I would earn myself a good mark and a good pat on the shoulder from my teacher.
Do you find, are you more creative in Xhosa or in English? What is your inner voice? Where's your creative inner voice? Is it Xhosa or English? How does that work?
My creative inner voice is multilingual.
Multilingual. Basically, you haven't answered the hard question.
Because my creative voice can tap into your tsotsi tao.
Yeah.
My creative inner voice can tap into anything, basically.
And then you said when you told your parents and your family that you were a creative, it was a bit of a struggle.
I never told them.
You never told them?
I revealed that during a radio interview on Umhlobo Wenene FM. Let me tell you about that.
Yeah.
Because when I started writing Diary of Makwapeni in the year 2013, I was transitioning spiritually. So I was going through my spiritual journey because I entered initiation school, undergoing the initiation of becoming Iqirha, aka Yosangoma.
Okay. So how does that work? Do you have to have a calling, and then do you just sign up somewhere? Do you go to
no, definitely you have to have a calling, because I mean you have other ambitions about your life and where it's headed. I went to school. I'm an HR practitioner by profession. So it's a calling, you know, and it's something that I've known since I was very young, that I was different. And I had a sense, I used to draw people to me, you know, I used to draw kids to me. I was the mother when it comes to, you know, I was the nurturer, you know. So I knew from a very young age that I was different. I was highly intuitive.
And then what is the practicalities? If you're a traditional healer, do you get a mentor? Is there a syllabus? Do you go to school? How does it work?
In a sense, you do go to school because you have to get taught, and you need to understand what you're going through or what is taking place within you, because you don't just go to that school, that initiation school. It has to come in the form of a dream.
Okay.
So you actually have to dream about it. It has to be a sequence, sort of like a sequence of events that lead you to going or undergoing initiation. So when I grew up, I knew I was different, but in high school, things started getting worse for me. You know, that's why I say in the clinical psychology sphere, we have to have people who are spiritual or who have an understanding of spirituality, because people can get misdiagnosed with mental disorders, you know, personality disorders, your anxiety. I did mention this earlier when we were having a chat outside. That so as a spiritual practitioner, I must be able to distinguish between a mentally disturbed person who is mentally ill and a person who is going through the process of spiritual transitioning. Because a person who's going through that process of spiritual transitioning, there will be signs apart from the symptoms that drive practitioners to lead the patient to mental illness. So there will be signs, there will be a sequence of events. You don't wake up one day and you are a sangoma. You don't wake up one day and you decide you want to go to initiation school. Your ancestors show you through visions, through dreams. You get very ill physically. Apart from the mental aspect. So then you wake up. Sometimes you go there in your sleep. You sleepwalk to the person, the mentor, the person who's going to undertake you through the whole initiation process, right? So it was in grade 10 when it started happening, the spiritual transition. I cannot explain it into words because the language in itself has limitations.
And it's spiritual. It's difficult for somebody to see this and think, how does this work? You know?
But I like to break it down into a sickness of misalignment.
I like that, a sickness of misalignment.
Yes, you just undergo a very difficult transition in your life where you feel like you are misaligned. On a very deep level, not on a superficial level, and then it starts happening, the visions, the dreams and everything, and then you start changing, and then you feel yourself change, because now you are taking on the spirits of the people that came before you.
And when you say you take on the spirits of people that came before you, is it people in your ancestral line, or do you have people that you perhaps don't even know or have no connection to?
For me personally, I don't know about the experiences of other people when they go through this, but for me personally, it was spirits from my ancestral lineage. Some I had no knowledge of, but they told me. And then when I told my parents about them, they were in awe, because those are actual people that existed.
Really, yes.
You know, when I told my grandfather, the elders in the family, they were in awe. So every instruction you get through visions, through dreams, nobody comes to tell you that, okay, this is what you're going to do now. You're going to get a goat, you're going to slaughter this, you're going to slaughter that. No, everything you get told through a dream. That's you go through what I like to call lucid dreaming.
Yes. Yes.
So it feels like an out-of-body experience when you're there, and you meet these spirits. Right, you meet these people and you go through a journey, sort of like a maze. You know, you see yourself healing, you see yourself picking the herbs, you see yourself getting a diagnosis of something, or like for instance now, as I'm practicing now, before someone comes in Ndumbeni is the heart, the place where I conduct my spiritual work. So before someone comes in Ndumbeni, if they've not contacted me via my line or WhatsApp line, I get to see them before they actually come. So I get told that such and such person is going to come through a vision. I'm wide awake, I'm not sleeping, through a vision. I could be on my phone, I could be watching television, I could be doing my own thing, and then a vision will come and stop me. And then I'll see this person through a vision, and they'll be dressing like so and so. And then instinctively, something is going to tell me that this person's problem is this and that, and I have to mix this herb and this herb to heal this person. So that's how
I find it quite interesting that in all the podcasts that we've done, and you know, we speak to university professors and doctors, and let's say the Western line.
Oh my God, yes.
The Western line.
Sorry.
And they would go to their GP or their specialist when they're in East London or Johannesburg. But when they go back to their village, they would still go and see you. So it doesn't matter how westernized you've become, people still are drawn to the Sangomas, to the holistic healers. It's something that's deeply rooted in the culture of African people.
Yes, definitely. It's very important that you mention that, because you know, Sangoma spiritual healers are people that will always exist, you know, because it's who we are as a people, as Abantu Bagwantu, it's who we are as a people. So the concept of a person or an individual is different from a concept of Ubuntu and Umtu. So that's why they can never be a direct translation.
Yes, yeah,
because to translate Umtu, Wagwantu, you'd say in English that person is an individual from a group of individuals, or a person, which is not that. Umtu Wagwantu is an entire rooted being that still lives in the principle of Ubuntu. You know, Ubuntu, our way of life, our humble way of life. You know, so when the Western influence came to Southern Africa, they influenced our way of being. They influenced our roots and everything that encompasses who we are. So we gradually, over centuries, lost track of who we are. So I think the real calling now is not so much about wearing beads and being a Sangoma and performing this and that, but the real calling now is to go back to who we are. So that is why the spirit of our ancestors is revolting today. And everyone you see has become a Sangoma. It's not so much about being a Sangoma, but we all have a calling to return to our roots.
Yeah. And speaking of that, you know, before we started the podcast, there was a bit of sound, and you're wearing these beautiful beads.
Yes.
And you said you wanted to speak about that as well.
There was a bit of friction
yeah.
when it comes to the beads. And it's something, I don't have to wear the beads because this thing, it flows through my blood. We say, you know, So the beads were a symbol back then. Beads are symbolic in our culture. You know, a young woman has waist. They make waist beads for young women. You know, teenagers, and you know, beads are symbolic. They're not only a symbol of being a sangoma, right? So me wearing these beads, they keep me grounded. You know, they remind me that I didn't come here coming alone. I didn't come in coming alone. There's an entire entourage of ancestors with me. So the things that this is symbolic. This is symbolic. You know, these are cowrie shells and this the beads.
Everything has a meaning. Hey?
Everything has a meaning. Yes.
And I think this is where the Western world is losing it, because they're so, although we say they're practical, half the times they're impractical, and they've lost touch with their spirituality, because one of the things that I say is missing in South Africa these days is family, is spirituality. We've got more phones and more ways to keep in contact, but we're more alone than ever before.
Yes,
you know?
Yes. I think that is very important, because people need to be grounded more, because we can't hear our inner voice, that instinct, if we're not grounded. And I believe that in everything that you do, you need to hear from your inner voice first. Otherwise, then you have no direction.
Yeah.
So that is essentially what the technological world has done to us. You know, it made us. It goes back to what I was saying, that it's the Western influence that came to us. Our elders, there's a word that they use. They mention ubuqoboka. Ubuqoboka. So if you are a person who is very educated, who's always in suits, they look at you and say uqobokile, uliqoboka, meaning that you've lost touch of ubuqaba bakho, who you are.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that is what the calling is about today. You know,
the whole point. I mean, the spirituality in the Xhosa world and the Zulu world and the African world, it's merged. And it almost seems like the Western world has been pushing down on you. We need to find that equilibrium, that balance, because after a while, you could lose your entire culture. You could lose the essence of who you are, which is one of the things we were discussing is storytelling. That's something that you love. Tell us about the storytelling.
All right. Well, my writing journey is not so much about a writing journey, but so much about harnessing the storyteller in me. Storytelling is an art for me. Storytelling is a social and cultural activity. It's who we are, it's embedded in us, and it has been passed on from generation to generation. So my writing is all about storytelling, because I believe in order for you to be a good writer, you must be an immaculate storyteller. You know, you must be able to transcend the characters. You must build an entire world in your head if you're writing fiction.
I find the best storytellers are little children who are trying to cover up a lie. They come up with the greatest stories, and you know it's a lie, but it's so elaborate, you've just got to go with it. Said, oh really? So a dinosaur did eat your homework.
Yes, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because, you know, I felt I couldn't come out to my parents, being the conservative people that they are. Churchgoers, very staunch Christians. So when I was writing my first body of work, first offering, like I said, my observations and whatnot, it was very difficult to come and say, Mom, I'm writing a book, and because I know the question will follow, what is the book about?
Okay.
And I'm going to tell her, no, it's about this guy who's this and that, and he does this and that, and the ladies and whatnot. And I write for entertainment. I write for entertainment. Not that I cannot tap into the spiritual side of things, my spiritual creativity, that spiritual realm, but mainly I write for entertainment. So it was very difficult for me to say, Mom, I'm writing a story that is akin to what you would normally watch on TV, you know, about this, about that. You know, it had to come out in a very spontaneous way. It wasn't deliberate when it came out.
And how did they respond?
I made them listen to a radio interview.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yes,
Yeah.
because when I started the journey of writing Diary of Makwapeni, I started a blog, and the blog generated over 100,000 readers within weeks of its existence, and people were talking about it. But I was writing this blog anonymously.
Okay.
So until one day, my roommate at the time, I was in Port Elizabeth, 2013. She told me that, look, there's a very interesting blog that I think you should follow. You know, it's about this, it's about that. And I'm like, no, I'm actually the writer.
Yeah. And what was the response?
She couldn't believe it, because she told me that, you know, her entire family, her sisters, were followers of this work, and yet I was writing it right under her nose.
Yeah, yeah.
And I made her promise not to tell anyone, because I feared the response.
Why would you fear the response?
Because, you know, imposter syndrome, you know,
Okay.
and you're not really comfortable in your, you know, you don't really know. But the response was amazing. The response was amazing.
Is that
but
blog still going on? Are you still contributing? Are you still writing it?
I want to turn it into a television production. That was the main aim when I started writing it. Okay, I started writing for fun, but it gradually was an idea that was planted in me, that I wanted to turn it into a television production, but, you know, I didn't have the resources to turn it into a production. A production company after the interviews, because our Daily Dispatch wrote about me, the Herald newspaper in Port Elizabeth wrote about the story. So it gained a lot of traction that I didn't think it would gain. So I was contacted by a production company, but of course, if the deal is not fair, I was naive at the time, I was young when I wrote that. So if the deal doesn't look fair, and if people ask me to seek legal advice when it comes to this deal, and I go seek the advice and they advise me not to take the deal,
Okay.
then that's that, you know.
But the body of work still belongs to you, and you can uptick it at any time.
It still belongs to me. So I think after that incident, I was a bit skeptical about television, about the industry. I did not understand what was going on, because my intention was not to be a scriptwriter, you know. But according to the feedback of people, they urged me to put this thing on TV, because as they read it, it's as if they're watching it. They tell me.
You get drawn into it. You get.
Yes, because I think what made Diary of Makwapeni very successful was that it was so relatable to those are regular stories about us, about youth, you know, about what goes on here. Yeah. Yes, with regular people. So I think that's what made it more relatable to people and popular to people.
It's like I was saying earlier off camera. I would love it one day when a story from Umdansani, a story from King Williamstown or Dimbaza gets an Oscar. And somebody walks up in Los Angeles, gets their Oscar and makes the speech in Xhosa. You know, there's so many great storytellers here. I mean, if you look behind the camera, we've got this great team of men and women who are doing this podcast, and there's so much happening from a creative point of view here. Do you think the government is doing enough to bring people up like that from Umdansani and all over the country?
Look, we can't sit here and say not enough is being done, but more could be done, you know. We can't sit here and, you know, ignore the efforts that have been made previously in the past by the Department of Arts and Culture, the opportunities that, but I think we need to look at where these opportunities land, you know, where the opportunities land. Are they being taken to the people, or they remain here, you know? So to answer your question, I think the government could do more.
Every government could do more, but the question is, are they doing enough? Because one of the things that I don't like is maybe a young writer such as yourself, or a camera person, somebody's got a dream. They're staying in Umdansani, they don't know where to go. They don't know how to pursue this dream. And in the end, they do something that's not them, because it pays the bill, and then 20, 30 years down the line, the dream is dead.
Yes.
You know, we don't want
Yes.
that for our youth.
I think they could very well do more.
Mm-hmm.
They could do more in exposing opportunities to young people, young creatives, investing in the industry. You know, mentorships. You know, mentorship programs, and you know, making sure that these resources they land in good hands, they land in the beneficiaries intended, you know. So they're not doing enough for the industry. I think it's in the back burner.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, obviously we've got major problems in our country, and they're going to say, well, we need to put money towards resourcing, medical, policing, crime prevention, education. We leave the ballet and the creative writing and that sort of stuff to the end if there's any money left.
Yes.
So when you went down this path of a traditional healer, was there any negative feedback from the community? Is it a male-dominated space, a female? How does, because most people don't know anything about this.
In my family, it was no surprise. In as Christian as it was no surprise, because it can't be a surprise, because the child grew up in front of you. You saw the signs, having a knowing, with the knowing that in our culture, in who we are, exists spirituality. So this child is more in tune with her spiritual antennas, more in tune with her ancestors. So I don't think I received negative feedback in my immediate family and my family at large. However, it was surprising to other people, because you carry yourself in a certain way when you are at school, when you are socializing with your friends, you carry yourself a certain way. You try, especially when you have not accepted who you are and the calling, you try by all means to fit in. You try by all means to do what other kids your age are doing, whereas it goes against perhaps their way that they prefer you to live. You go partying with other peers, so you do everything. And when you have this kind of calling, now things change post initiation, post twasa. Things change for you, because you don't remain the same person going out as you were going in.
Do you have to have a Xhosa background? What happens if a white girl from East London wakes up one day and says she has a calling to be a single mom? How does, do you get white traditional healers? Or you see?
I've seen on the internet, you know, but I've never met one personally.
Because
but
traditional healing means you would need to have the tradition behind you.
Not exactly,
No?
because then it would be limiting spirit, you know. It would be limiting the way that spirit chooses to operate within us, you know.
So now you've got the creative side, and you've got the spiritual side, and you've got the modern side. Obviously, how do you keep sane?
It's very hard. It's very hard. It is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do after graduating, after being a fully fledged igqirha. It was one of the hardest.
So when you graduate, what happens? I mean, does your family come? Is it like a normal graduation ceremony you see on television?
I will answer that. Let me just finish. So with regards to finding balance and harmony with your social life and who you are individually, and maintaining your individuality apart from your spirituality and the people that, you know, that go with you, I think that, you know, for instance, when I was coming here, I needed to address the fact that I was coming here.
You mentioned that, explain that you had to not so much get permission.
It wasn't permission, you know, it was making them understand, because they're not very technologically advanced people or spirit, you know. It's something that they don't understand. The digital world, the media and everything. So I needed to tell them that I was going to go talk about them, talk about my journey, talk about my spirituality, and I needed them to be comfortable. Because when I'm operating, as opposed to here, when I'm in the Mundumba, I usher them, I invoke them. So then for me to be able to work with the client or the patient or whatever. So now I'm in a different setup where I also need to invoke them, but there's no danger, there's no harm, there's no sickness, there's no patient in front of me. It's just cameras. So I need to make them aware that, okay, I'm going to a podcast. I'll talk about my spiritual journey. I don't want to act up. I don't want to be emotional. I don't want, because energetically I feel everything, around me. So if there's something wrong with someone, I have to be able to contain myself and not act up, and not be and not create an uproar, about the situation. I need to be able to look at someone and accept that they're battling with A, B, and C, but it's not my place to.
In other words, you have to be grounded.
I have to be grounded.
I practice Stoicism, which is a Greek philosophy where you make decisions based on the cold hard facts. You worry about the things that you can change, and the things that you cannot change you leave behind, because we're living in such a crazy world, and we're bombarded with all of this podcast and all this media and all this books and all of this and you need to remain grounded.
You need to find the balance. So when it's time for me to work, I work, and when it's time for me to be myself, I am myself, because that's one of the things that I had asked from them post-graduation, that give me the space to maintain my individuality, because I'm still young. I'm 30 years. I'm still young, and I need to pursue other things for myself. At least I've accepted the calling, and you are able to work through me. I'm able to extend my healing, my calling to other people and change lives. So I've done it all. So the least now I can have is myself back and my individuality. So it's sort of like that dynamic when it comes to ancestral work and so now coming to the real world.
Not that the other world isn't real. It's
not
a different world.
That the material world, the tangible
material world.
the tangible world. Now with the tangible world, I've got a circle of people who understand who I am, and obviously I'm going to meet strangers. I'm going to meet you for the first time. I need to be able to connect with you, and you connect with me and understand, where I'm coming from, because we've all got different stories to tell. We've all got different journeys that we've walked. So it's very important that people keep an open mind when it comes to things of the spirit, because they are not linear. Life is not linear.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, life is a crazy, beautiful, wonderful adventure. And as I was saying before we started, if you go on a bus, if you go on a plane, if you go on a train, everybody there sitting has got a story to tell. They could be going to propose.
Definitely.
They could be going to assassinate somebody. They could be going to see. Everybody's got a wonderful story, and it's this tapestry of colors and life and emotions that we seem to be missing these days. Everybody's just got blinkers and on their own wavelength.
Everyone should be a storyteller. Everyone should be a storyteller. I think it's important for people's voices to be heard. I'm a very good advocate when it comes to that, because anyone, you can learn from anyone. You can learn from a child, and being the spiritual person that I am, I listen to guys on the street, homeless people, people that would otherwise look at and think that I can't listen to this person. This is a madman. I like listening to those. I like listening to those people.
There's a fine line between insanity and genius.
Yes. Because my mother told me a story one day that she was standing in a queue at Spa, and a madman came up to her in rags, and he began to just utter numbers to her. And she wasn't mindful at first of the numbers that he'd uttered. So I suppose he came out to her and said 16, 23, 18.
The lotto numbers.
Yes, the lotto numbers, yes. And then she recorded the numbers, however, paying no mind to the person who said the numbers, and decided to play the lottery. But I don't know what came in her way. I don't know what came in her way. But to her surprise, the numbers that she was to play that week, they were there.
She didn't play.
And she didn't play. She didn't play.
We need to find this man. We need to find this man.
She didn't play. So what I'm trying to outline here is the importance of, you know, listening to people, not looking at people and, you know, classing them. You know,
we're quick to judge.
We're very quick to judge.
And we don't understand the whole,
we're very quick to
the
judge.
whole picture.
We don't understand. So I'm of the belief that an ancestor could come through that person and speak through that person, the person that you looked at and undermined or judged or, you know, shunned upon. So that is how spirit works. You know?
It's absolutely fascinating because most people live in this Western material world. Most of the people I don't know, I know, don't know anything about sangomas. They see it on the news, they see it on TV, and they wonder, they just see the bones and they wonder how does this actually work? You know. So, what do you do now in your spare time? What do you do to relax, to unwind? And don't say writing, because writing is.
What I do in my spare time, you know, I go out. I love watching shows.
Okay.
Music shows. I go out. I spend time with people that I love because I found that with my life I've got very little time to do. To spare connecting with myself now. You know, because I practice. I get clients, people coming in, and you know.
Is this something you do full time now?
It's something that I do full time.
So HR is out the window now. You fired yourself.
HR is out of the window, not because I couldn't get a job. I did work in a office setup, but it wasn't for me.
I just don't see you in an office. I just don't see you in a 9 to 5 office.
Exactly. So I now the things that I'm pursuing are film. The things that I'm pursuing is my writing and the screenwriting. I'm self-taught when it comes to screenwriting. I understand full well how to use the platforms that are given to me, you know. So everything now is self-taught, and because now you have to refine the skill. God gave you the talent. God gave you the skill. Now it's up to you to refine the skill. And if it doesn't work, you don't change the goal, change the strategy.
So we have a young child watching the podcast now, and they're feeling the creative juices and they want to be a writer or they want to go and do something in the creative field. What is your advice to them?
To follow that dream, you know. It's not going to be easy. Creatives never have it easy, you know.
Yeah, most parents would say, well, go and study law or HR or something.
Exactly.
That's creative on the side.
I think that's how I grew up also. It's very important that you mention that, because I think in high school with the debating and all, I could see myself being a lawyer, you know, studying LLB later on.
Well, it would make a logical step, debating,
It was very logical back then. But out of high school and post the spiritual healing, things changed for me. You know, I got to know who I am on a very fundamental level, and then I was not afraid now to say it out into the world, with the hope that the universe is going to bring back to me and connect me with people on the same journey. So I think it's very important that if people around your vicinity do not understand your art and they don't support your art and your route that you've taken, then you find mentors, you find people who are in the same industry that you'd like to get into. You speak to people, you listen to people, you gather as much information as you can about the industry that you want to get into it with regards to art, and you know that you're not for everyone, you know, you just need to believe in your dream, believe in your craft, and you know, accept positive criticism. You know, that's how you grow. So I like to, when I write, I like writing and then having people read what I write and give me their honest opinions. I have accountability partners, you know.
That's nice. Accountability partners, because in this day and age, everybody just seems to do whatever they want, and they don't have mentors, they don't have a priest or a traditional healer, a banker, a lawyer.
A therapist,
Yeah.
yes. I'm a very big advocate when it comes to therapy, you know.
Do you think everybody should go to therapy?
Everybody has got an experience,
Yeah.
and some, they know that things have affected them the way they have, and some are not aware. So I think everyone should take the chance to visit a therapist, you know, and uncover, you know, the layers of who they are. You don't need to have a problem per se to go to a therapist. You don't need to be sick, you know, but there are things that happen in your childhood that need, you know,
unpacking,
yeah. And for you to understand why you are the way that you are. I think that's a journey to healing on its own. I encourage that, yeah.
So I know we're jumping all over the place here because you're such an interesting character, and you've got
Thank you.
Are you mentoring young people that want to follow you? Has somebody come to you and says, I see you and I want to be like you and I want to be a traditional healer? Do you find that you attract those sort of people now as well?
Thank you for that question, because when it comes to me, I don't go looking to mentor people. They come to me the way that I went to my traditional mentor, in the form of a dream. So they do dream about me. I have people who come to me, I've never met them, they're strangers to me, and they say that my ancestors, they led me to you, you know. And surprisingly enough, when I use divination and consult with the ancestors, they'll tell me about this person and why they're here and what they need from me and what I'll get out of them. Because at the end of the day, it's a transaction that takes place. I may be your mentor, but at the end of the day, I've got something to learn with our interaction,
absolutely.
with our meeting, because there's a divine purpose to our meeting. You know, you've got something to learn from me, and I've got something to learn from you, and we needed to encounter each other. So my mentorship runs along those lines, and of course, there are other people who are in the process of Uktwasa, undergoing a initiation into becoming a traditional healer. So those people, they don't just go to any healer because it's something that needs to be directed by the people that want that person to take this calling, if you may. Because now, when it comes to me, an ancestor in my bloodline came through. I was familiar with her, and I was told stories about her. She was a traditional healer back then. It is my father's grandmother, great-grandmother. Yes, it's my great-grandmother.
And did you know that she was a traditional healer? Did you have?
I did not have an idea back then, but after the dreams, the consecutive dreams about her, I was told that, you know, your great-grandmother, she was a traditional healer. And my father personally told me that my grandmother, which is my great-grandmother, we used to go pick herbs together. People would come in and they would pay her with livestock. You know, they would pay her with livestock. It was never money. The currency was livestock. So it was something of that nature. Now she wants me to continue with the work that she was doing while she was alive, and my other ancestors, because it's not only her. You know, she's not the owner of this, you know, gift that's being passed on. You know, so now that, coupled with a natural prophetic calling that is not from the ancestors but from the creator energy, the spirit of God. So now I'm able to integrate both of that into my work. So when someone comes in and they are undergoing initiation, I can be able to facilitate the process of their initiation, the slaughtering, their whatnot, until they reach a point where they are now going to graduate out of the school, you know. So my home, it's been made conducive for that as well. Extra rooms at the back, because now I've got people who need to stay where I am for a period of time, and then they leave. So I'm one person who, when it comes back to that question of how do I balance myself, I have to now press pause on my life and my things and my commitments, and I have to attend to this thing and foresee this process, and then with that comes the fasting, because I have to keep in touch, a connection with spirit. So I have to fast on their behalf. I have to do all that.
So when you say fast, what do you, I mean, you eat one meal a day then, or is it?
It depends. It depends.
This is fascinating because Indian people fast and the Muslim people fast, but I've never heard of it.
It depends because I cannot fully meditate without going into a fast first, because I need to cleanse. Now the purging doesn't happen physically first. It needs to happen spiritually, on a spiritual level. So with the fasting, the purging happens because now I'm going to be overseeing ancestral processes. So I have to come present myself in a certain way to them, because now I agreed years back, 10 years ago, that I was going to be used as an instrument, as a vessel to heal these people. So with the transition from my normal day-to-day life back to my spirituality, I have to facilitate the process as well, physically, so spiritually, so for me to fully integrate into my duties as a spiritual practitioner.
Now, this is absolutely fascinating because people, unfortunately, most people have this feeling and this they see spiritual healer. The closest they get to it is when they're waiting at the robot and somebody gives you that pamphlet to say, phone this guy, this Nigerian doctor, and give 5,000 rand, and you're going to get this money, and they'll bring back love. And then you look and say, whatever.
Like every other thing that's misunderstood, the prejudices, and like every other thing that's misunderstood, I think also our spirituality is misunderstood. I think religion, Christianity, because like we grew up in the religion of Christianity, it's sort of confined the way that we relate to ourselves and our roots and our culture, because having grown up in a church where it was forbidden for us to practice our rites of passages, such as invaluable, formally introducing the newborn child to the ancestry in the form of a goat. Those things were forbidden in the Christian religion.
It would be, because Christianity is European-based, and then they brought it here. Now there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect. There's conflict, and it's more prevalent when someone comes in Ndombeni and they are sick, and some believe that they have a spiritual calling of becoming a sangoma. But when I consult with the ancestors, I'm told that this child only needs a rite of passage, ancestrally, into their lineage. This child, uyabangwa, ukubangwa, there's sort of like a conflict. So those are the things that fundamentally that person needs in order for them to live a normal life. They need to be grounded in that sense. So after undergoing a rite of passage such as Imbeleko, or formally introducing the child to the ancestry of the home.
What does that involve then? Is that a slaughtering? Is that a prayer?
It's a ritual.
A ritual.
It's a ritual where they take the goat, they slaughter the goat, and they take umkhono of the goat, so it's the shoulder of the goat.
Who has to do that?
They take the bile, the uncles, the father.
So it's not the young child.
Sorry. So it's not the young child. The young child is there on the grass mat, ukuko, with the mother. The mother waiting to receive the blanket that is the goat's skin.
That's
to carry the child.
Absolutely fascinating. If we were to make a movie about this in Hollywood, people would be fascinated because they don't understand.
Exactly. So those are the things that we need. And when they come in, they are not aware that this must happen. What the ancestors primarily want with this child is for them to be formally introduced in the form of imbeleko to the lineage, Now, they come and then I consult and then I give them the solutions. I relay the messages that I download. And they go out there and they do it. Usually it's families with a very big disconnect from the ancestral and cultural things. So they need guidance in that sense for them to understand. Some of them are Christians, they don't know anything about our traditions and culture. So I need to be that voice, that custodian, so to speak, of our culture, of our way of life. So
do you think, I mean, you can speak for people in Umdansani, are the youth losing their culture, the Xhosa culture?
I don't think the youth is losing their culture. I think now more than ever, the youth is actually drawing closer
Really?
to their culture. Yes, a whole lot more young people are interested in knowing who they are, where they come from. You know, they partake in certain ceremonies that happen, like the brewing of African beer in commemoration or to pay homage to their ancestors, to thank their ancestors. So they partake in those kind. They drink from the same cup, from the same can, from the same. We call it ipekile. They drink from the same. They want to know about the processes. So I find
that is wonderful, because if you don't know where you come from, you cannot sure as hell plan to where you want to go.
Exactly.
You know, and you don't want a situation where a family drives past Umdansani and the mother father say, "Oh, we came from there," you know, but I don't know exactly where. I mean, that would be pretty sad.
That would be pretty sad, because there is beauty in our culture. There is beauty in our people. There's beauty in our culture. There's beauty in our people. There's beauty in knowing where you come from, because one day you're going to have children, and you're going to need to teach those children where they come from. You know, so what are you going to do if your children fall ill and you have no means, or you are not equipped with the right knowledge about where you come from, and that child needs a ceremony, a rite of passage? You know, we have a very common practice. It was very common earlier on, of intonjana. You know, it was a rite of passage for a teenage girl child to go into, because now the boy child goes to the mountain.
Yes,
right?
yes, we all know that.
So yes, but what about the girl child? What is done to prepare the girl child? So in our culture, we had intonjana. We still do have it, but it's not. I don't think it's as prevalent as it was.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Back then. So it was a process to ground this young woman into the adolescent stage, much like the mountain for the boy child. Indonjana was sort of like a process that facilitated that growth, you know, that transition, you know, and it was facilitated by women in the family. So now the men are in charge of facilitating the boy child process, and now the women, now the women are in charge of picking the grass, the wood to make the fire, you know, to how the child is to conduct herself now, the talk basically. So it was incorporated into a whole traditional ceremony. It wasn't a ritual, it was a ceremony, it was a celebration to acknowledge now the virgin girl child is transitioning now into a woman, and hopefully during Indonjane a boy would see her.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yes, a boy would see her and, you know, want to marry her.
Yeah.
It was a great pride for the girl child to be taken as a
We should
bride.
bring that back. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
You know?
So those are the kind of stories that need to be heard, and it starts from knowing who we are. So I think that's the calling now, is to go back to who we are, because we've got amazing stories. Marvel Studios, the Woman King, that is an African story, you know, that is an African story, but it has been taken and it has been twitched and turned and
bastardized. It's been changed to the point where you don't know what it is anymore.
Exactly. So those are the stories that I'm interested in telling, you know. Hopefully one day the ancestors will open up the road and the path for me, and I would see these stories being aired on big distributors such as Marvel Studios and Netflix and whatnot. So that is where I want to take the writing.
So we've discussed a whole lot of great things that is happening, and where you want to go, and what is you've got a vision, I mean, pun intended, of where you want to go and what you want to do. Are people open to the idea of seeing this? You've got a big blog, you've got a big
very much so.
Facebook following, you've got a big social media following.
Very much so. I think now it just needs an opportunity, because people have been waiting. It's been years. People beg me all the time. Remember, I started the blog in 2013. In 2024, people are still talking about that. You know, I posted an update, I think 2 days ago, when I heard that I am being invited on the podcast. So I wrote a post on Facebook and all my other social media platforms that I'd be making a big announcement on the podcast, and I had a big surprise for someone
really?
who would guess what that is. You know, it's no secret that people want to see my work on hard copy. People want to see my work on screen. But for me, initially, the vision was not to write novels, because I had a bigger picture of my writing. The way that I write, it is like I'm writing a script.
Yes.
So now to take the way that I write and turn it into the format of a novel, it kind of restricted my creativity.
You've got
because now I
on each
can't
side.
lights, camera, action on a novel. You know, so it's no secret that they're waiting for a hard copy, but I didn't want to go the publishing route, the traditional publishing route. I have quite a number of reasons why, apart from the fact that it's very expensive. So I then decided to go the self-publishing route, and that has got its perks as well, because it's equally expensive. You know, you have to start everything from scratch on your own, but you have to pay people because you need to outsource editors. You can't proofread the work by yourself. So I needed that. I need an editor. After that, you outsource a creative to design a book cover for you. And I thought, what the hell? I'm a creative. I will design my own covers, you know? And I taught myself that, and I designed the covers, and they were satisfactory to me. And of course, I asked people within my circle, and they gave me feedback, and they loved it. So now here's the part. Now I have to fundraise for the publishing, you know. And it would be easy for me to go out to my following and say, listen, pre-order the book so that I can get the funds, and then pay the editor and everything else. But that will be a process on its own, and we don't want to keep people waiting. They've been waiting for 10 years. So we don't want to keep people waiting. So with that, I decided, let me create my own system of distributing ebooks. You know, let me go on WhatsApp, let me create a group, and then under the group, I'll create another group of the work, my offerings, the books that I've written so far, and people will subscribe.
Sounds like a plan.
To that, people will subscribe to that 100 bags. People get accepted in the group, and then I just distribute.
You want to be an industry disruptor. Just because books have been published a certain way, or movies have been made a certain way, or podcasts have been done a certain way, you can disrupt things now.
I'm very unconventional. I'm a very unconventional person. I don't conform. So I didn't want to conform, because I realized that wanting what you want and expecting it to go the way that you had planned is futile, because it hardly goes the way you plan.
Life never happens the way you think it's going to go, you know?
So I'm going to get to where I want to get, because I haven't changed the goal. The goal is still television, you know? And I think if you are a producer, you should grab me while you still can.
You know, before we started, you said you were a little bit nervous, but all the cameras and the lights here, and you've been on fire.
No. I've cooled down now. So I think if you're a producer and, you know, you've got an opportunity to spare, you should grab it by both hands, because
Yeah, you're seeing it on the podcast. There's somebody here that's got creativity, has got talent, and she wants to
Yes,
do things.
because I will be the next big thing in the industry.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
I like it when people put stuff out there in the universe. I am going to be the next big thing in the industry. I am going to
Definitely.
do this. I'm going to get my matric or whatever the thing is.
Definitely,
Yeah.
it all forms part of divine order, manifestation, the law of attraction.
So on that divine, positive note, I think this podcast has been absolutely fascinating, because we've touched on things that we wouldn't really touch on. Most people don't know about sangomas and spirituality and finding your true calling, and I hope people find it inspiring. And I'm pretty certain, based on the conversation we had today, we're definitely going to see something on the big screen, not the small screen, the big screen.
Oh, definitely.
No, thank you for that. So folks, the whole idea about being man in the arena, it's not just about exploring the physical world, such as climbing and flying and jumping out of planes and doing the Top Gun sort of stuff. It's also about getting down and finding out who you are as a man, who you are as a woman, who you are as an individual. When you find out who you are, then you can lay the groundwork of where you want to go. So wherever you are in the world, be bold, live adventure, live ambitious, and be the man in the arena. We'll catch you next time. Have a great day.